Welcome back to our course on PSE 15. In this section, I'm going to demonstrate sharing using email. This is an example where I'm taking a couple of images from my catalogue and I'm going to send these images to one or more specific individuals. If you're going to use email for sharing, the first thing to do is to make sure that your email is set up correctly on the device you're using. So click on Edit, go into Preferences, and there is a Preferences page, Email. In my case, the email profile that I have set up on this device is Microsoft Outlook, and I actually use Outlook for all of the email on this device. I have a number of accounts that I access. If you have a suitable profile set up, it should appear on the drop-down list on your device. You can select that profile and you should be fine. If you don't see a suitable profile there, but you do have at least one email account, if it's one of the more popular email service providers, if you click on New here, a little dialog comes up, New Profile. Look at the service providers. Amongst the listed service providers, for example, there is Gmail. Let's suppose you want to set up a new profile to use here. Let's call it Gmail Profile. Click on OK and it takes you into a little setup section of preferences here. Configure email client. So we're calling this profile Gmail Profile. You put in your Gmail email address in there, your name and your password, so that PSE can use those for you. You don't have to keep logging in time after time. Click on Validate and PSE will validate that the email address and the name and password you provided seem to work okay. If everything's okay, you'll have a suitable profile set up and you can use that whenever you want to send, in this case for example, images as attachments from PSE. If your email service provider doesn't appear, this may sometimes happen with some email services that, for example, you only access via the web. You may have trouble getting this to work. If you do have trouble getting it to work, then the instructions there basically outline how to send images as attachments from outside PSE. Basically what that amounts to is saving the images somewhere and then logging into your email account in the way that you normally do and attaching those saved images as attachments to emails you're sending in the usual way. So effectively doing the whole job outside PSE. In my case, the Outlook profile that I have set up works fine, so I can cancel the preferences here and I'll be ready to send images as attachments. Make sure that yours is set up correctly and then you should be too. So I think I'm just about ready to send a couple of pictures. I've selected that flower and I'm going to send a picture here of the iris as well. Click on Share, click on Email. Over on the right I have a panel which at the top has a bin, and if I wanted to add something to the list of attachments I'm sending, so for instance supposing I decided that I want the picture of the gulls there as well, having clicked to select I can drop that in the bin. And similarly, if I wanted to remove one of the pictures, I decided against sending the first flower, there's a trash can to remove it from the bin as well. One of the things to be very wary of here is the size of the attachments. You may well have a very good email service where you can have very, very large attachments, but don't forget the people that are receiving these images from you may not be quite so fortunate. They may have a limit on the size of individual attachments or perhaps the total size of attachments. In the lower part on the panel of the right, you have a way of controlling both the maximum size of photo and the quality for JPEGs. And what PSE will do will be to scale and amend the quality of those images accordingly to make the attachment smaller as necessary. So for instance, if I was aiming to send quite a few of these images and I was sending them to people where I know they have restrictions on the size of email attachments, I might decide, well, I'll stick with a maximum photo size of 800 by 600, but I'll drop the quality. These are only really preview images, so I'll drop it down to 5 medium JPEG quality, and that will reduce the estimated size of the attachments to just 96K, which would be fine. Note that you don't have to use JPEG format for attachments, but if you use other formats, there's an option here enabled, convert photos to JPEGs, which will then give them all in that standard, pretty much universal JPEG format. And then also you can use, for example, the quality setting here to scale them down in quality, which will correspondingly scale the attachments down in size. Having selected the images, made any settings there, I click on Next. Now I set up the email addresses of my recipients, the subject of the email, and the message that I want to go with the email. You now have basically two choices when it comes to recipients. If you want to use, say, a contact list from your email client, you can leave this blank for the moment. Alternatively, you may want to use a PSE contact book, which you access by clicking on the icon just to the right of where it says Select Recipients. You may want to keep a contact book so that you don't have to keep typing addresses in. You can actually import contact details. Click on the import button here, and you can import from vCard files, that's a standard type of contact file, or from Microsoft Outlook. I'm not going to go through that here, but if you do use Microsoft Outlook, that's a good way of importing email addresses. Alternatively, you can click on New Contact. It gives you a little dialog to set up a new contact. I should point out that any email addresses that you see here should be completely fictitious. So there's a contact. I can set up not only as many contacts as I like, but I could set up contact groups. If I just select John on this occasion, click on OK, John appears in my list of recipients. Let me change the subject. Having changed the subject, I'm now going to change the message. And when I'm happy with that, I click on Next. And what PSE does is to actually prepare my email message for me. And there is my email message. Note that at this point I have the option of adding recipients. If I hadn't selected any recipients at all, I could click on the To button here in the usual way and access recipients, for example, from my Outlook address book, or from the contact list or address book that you use with your email client. Once I'm happy with everything, the recipients, the attachments, the message, and so on, click on Send, and my images have been sent as an email attachment. That's it for this section. I'll see you in the next one.